Ever catch yourself, like, daydreaming about living forever?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, today we're diving deep into some stories that tackle that very idea, but, with a twist. We're cracking open excerpts from the Immortals series
Okay, yeah.
to see what happens when, saying no to death comes with some, well, seriously unexpected consequences.
It's wild how fiction can be such a powerful tool, don't you think?
Yeah.
For exploring these huge philosophical questions.
Right.
Immortality, the meaning of life. I mean, even just like wrapping your head around the concept of endless time. These aren't just like sci-fi tropes, you know?
Yeah.
These are ideas that like humanity's been grappling with for centuries.
Totally. And these stories, they don't shy away from the nitty-gritty.
No, they don't.
Think existential boredom, moral dilemmas, even a black hole or two.
Oh, yeah.
For those who decide eternity, maybe isn't all it's cracked up to be.
It's that what happens next aspect that these narratives just capture so well. The often overlooked consequences of achieving something, we think we want so badly.
Exactly. We meet this guy, Rob, and he's 89 years old, right?
Yeah.
And he decides to take the plunge into immortality.
Wow. 89.
He actually buys it, believe it or not, at this, interdimensional flea market.
You're kidding. At a flea market.
Gets his cosmic travel pass, thinks he's, set for endless adventure.
Of course.
The only problem is, well, he's pushing 90.
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle.
Yeah.
The story highlights a potential issue with immortality, right?
Yeah.
That we often overlook. What about existing inequalities? It makes you think, what if this rejuvenation tech, what if it's just out of reach for most people?
Yeah.
You could end up with this whole new level of social stratification, even with, endless life.
Whoa. Imagine achieving your dream of living forever only to be stuck with all the, the aches and pains of your 89-year-old self.
Right.
And that's where Rode finds himself. He's traveling the galaxies, seeing the rings of Saturn, exploring the dusty plains of Mars. Even with all that, he starts to feel this, this emptiness.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Have you ever felt that? And I mean, you haven't even lived for centuries.
Right. I mean, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does.
It's something that philosophers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre called existential boredom. The idea is, without death, without that finite point, life loses some of its inherent, meaning, its purpose.
Yeah.
Just like you were saying, you achieve all your goals, experience everything you ever wanted to, then what?
Right. What then?
That's the question at the heart of Rob's story.
It's like the entire universe just becomes one giant, been there, done that list.
Yeah.
So it makes his solution, well, a bit drastic. You almost understand, right? A one-way ticket to oblivion via black hole.
Not just any black hole, though, right?
No, not just any black hole.
The baby, as it's ominously called.
Right, the baby. And our narrator, this is interesting, he's actually the manager of the launch station.
Okay.
Basically, his job is to talk people out of this final leap.
Wow, what a job.
Right. But it seems like Rob, well, he's made up his mind, which, when you think about it, raises a pretty big question. In a world where you can live forever, is ending your own life still a right?
Yeah, I mean, does it normalize suicide in a way? Or is it more about autonomy, offering a choice in the face of, well, forever?
It's a heavy question, for sure, and it gets even more complicated with our next story, the tragic case of Admiral Ivanova.
Oh, okay. I've heard of her. Let's hear it.
Talk about a roller coaster of a life. This woman is a, decorated war hero, the bravest of the brave.
Wow.
And even after centuries of life, she gets this second wind, this, intense thirst for, living life to the fullest, which leads her to join these epic, almost mythical space battles.
It's amazing, isn't it? Even after centuries, that spark, the human spirit, it still craves purpose, excitement, maybe even a little danger. Who knows?
A little danger, maybe.
It challenges that assumption that immortality would just lead to, apathy or stagnation.
It really does. But then tragedy strikes. During one of these intense space battles, she gets thrown from her ship.
Oh, no.
Her suit saves her, thankfully, but her beacon, it's busted, so she's just adrift, alone in the vastness of space.
Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine the psychological impact of that kind of isolation?
It's like being in solitary confinement, but on a cosmic scale, right?
Centuries of that. Alone with your thoughts, just lost in the immensity of existence.
This story mentions these moments of pure terror and then this weird, almost blissful sense of unity with eternity. But the despair, it always seems to creep back in.
That's heartbreaking and kind of ironic, isn't it? Here's Ivanova, this woman who sought out excitement, purpose in the heat of battle. Ultimately, she finds herself yearning for release from her endless existence.
Yeah.
It really makes you question what happens when that one thing that defines us as humans, our mortality, is removed from the equation.
It makes you wonder.
Where do we find meaning, when death is no longer a possibility?
And that's the dilemma she's facing. After thousands of years, she's finally rescued, but by then, all she wants is to end her life. She basically gets in line right behind Rob, ready for that black hole.
Wow. Just wow. Makes you think, about the essence of being human. Is that longing for an end, even with the possibility of forever? Is that just ingrained in us?
Deep stuff, no doubt about it. And these stories, they don't let up, let me tell you. This next excerpt, it takes us from the vastness of space to a place that's even more mind-boggling. We're talking 4-dimensional cubes, virtual afterlives.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting.
Oh yeah, a whole lot of head scratching, trust me.
It's like the Matrix had a baby with the deepest existential crisis you can imagine.
Spot on. And get this, it all starts with something I think we can all relate to. Clutter. Because apparently, even when you live forever, you still accumulate a lot of stuff. Go figure, right?
Right. You'd think with all that time, you'd be the ultimate minimalist.
Right. But no, our friend, the launch station manager, he's got this whole system for dealing with the belongings of, the folks taking the Black Hole Express.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't exactly take it with you.
Exactly. But they can't just toss it out either. It's still a part of their story, their history.
Right, of course. All those possessions, they've got memories, emotions tied to them, connections to a life that even if it's ending, it still meant something.
Totally. So they store it all in this 4-dimensional warehouse.
A 4-dimensional warehouse?
Yeah, and every so often they gotta, evacuate it into the black hole.
Wild.
Separately from the owners, of course. Can't forget that part.
Right. Wouldn't want any unexpected reunions.
Right. But here's where things get really wild. Tesseracts. They enter the picture.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Tesseract. Picture, if you can, a 4-dimensional cube. I know. Mind-bending, right? But these tesseracts, they hold entire virtual universes inside them.
Whoa. Okay. Like pocket universes.
Sort of, yeah. It's important to remember these things were actually an early form of immortality. Before they figured out the whole, making people physically immortal thing.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a trial run for eternity.
I guess so, yeah.
But here's the catch. These virtual universes, they weren't infinite, right? And the resolution was supposedly terrible. People basically realized they were, trapped in a glorified simulation.
It's that existential crisis again, isn't it? Even when you create paradise, if you're trapped, it's still, a trap. It's a theme that just keeps popping up in these stories.
Absolutely. And guess who gets put in charge of organizing this 4-dimensional warehouse?
Let me guess. Not the tidiest person.
Well, remember our friend Rob?
Oh no, Rob, Mr. Black Hole bound.
The one and only. He stumbles upon, a box full of these tesseracts and, being the curious sort...
Oh no, he didn't.
Oh, he did. He accidentally touches one and gets, poof, sucked into virtual reality.
Poor Rob. Although, maybe not. It's hard to say at this point. I mean, that puts the launch station manager in a bind, though.
Right.
What do you do?
Talk about a dilemma, right? Does he, report it and potentially wait centuries for a response? Or does he just take matters into his own hands?
It's like individual autonomy versus responsibility.
Yeah.
Does he have the right to interfere, even if their reality is, I don't know, flawed or simulated? It's tough.
Right. What would you do? Seriously, stumble upon that kind of situation, you'd have the weight of a decision that could impact someone for thousands of years. It makes you think.
It does. About the responsibility of knowledge and, the power of choice in a world that seems so completely foreign to our own.
Heavy stuff. But the story, it doesn't give us any easy answers.
Of course not.
It just really highlights how these seemingly utopian technologies, immortality, virtual reality, you name it, they come with their own, baggage, new complexities, unforeseen consequences.
It's like every solution just creates a new problem.
Totally. This quest for progress, it takes us down a path filled with these twists and turns, and it makes you wonder, what is progress anyway, really? And at what cost?
It's a good question. We assume it's this straight line, this constant upward trajectory. But what if it's more like, I don't know, a roller coaster? full of loops and drops we don't see coming.
And with every loop, a new ethical dilemma pops up to say hello.
Exactly.
Okay.
And speaking of dilemmas, this next part, it gets a little more personal. It delves into friendship, betrayal, how those dynamics can change and evolve, that over millennia. It's a lot to unpack.
And as we get into, these relationships that stretch over lifetimes, we meet this character, Kim Kovaladris XII, or Captain Kim, as our narrator calls him.
Okay, Captain Kim.
Yeah, their connection goes way back, to childhood.
Yeah.
But it's been, complicated, to say the least. This, on-again, off-again thing for centuries.
Oh, wow. Centuries.
It makes you wonder what happens to relationships when you just have that much time, right?
It does. Do they become more meaningful or just harder to sustain?
Exactly. And that's the question that just hangs over these stories. There's this yearning for connection, for something real, something lasting.
Right.
But then there's this, this weariness too, the weight of old hurts, old memories. It just lingers for, centuries.
It makes you appreciate the good times, right?
Yeah.
In our own, shorter lifespans, those fleeting moments. They really shape us, don't they?
They really do. And speaking of shaping things, Captain Kim, he gets involved with this faction. They're called the Outs.
The Outs, okay.
And they have a very different take on this whole immortality thing. They're the dissenting voice in a world that seems obsessed with, conquering death.
Oh, interesting. The anti-immortality group.
They believe in, living and dying naturally, rejecting all the imprints and rejuvenation tech. It's a powerful reminder that even if we could conquer death, I don't know, not everyone would sign up for it.
That's a good point. It speaks to this idea that no matter how technologically advanced we become, those core human beliefs,
Right.
the clash between tradition and radical new ideas, it's not going away.
And the Outs, they have their own methods for dealing with what they see as a cosmic imbalance. It's called soul hacking. And yeah, it's as wild as it sounds.
Soul hacking. Okay, now I need to hear more about this.
They basically sever a person's consciousness from their physical immortal body. It's a chilling concept, right?
It's intense for sure. Forcing someone to be separated from their eternal existence.
But it shows just how far people might go, to impose their beliefs, especially when they think they're right.
Yeah, it's unsettling, to say the least. It makes you think, what would happen in a world where immortality is real and people have such radically different views on it?
Right. Would we see clashes of ideology on a whole other level? Would personal freedom even mean the same thing anymore? It's a lot to unpack.
Definitely.
And then the story throws this curveball. The narrator's friend, Captain Kim, becomes, the target of this soul hacking.
Oh, wow.
It just makes you question everything,
Everything you thought you knew about him, about their history.
And then you've got the narrator. He's struggling with his memories. Were they even real? Or were they, manipulated, fabricated somehow?
It really makes you question the nature of reality, doesn't it? Especially when technology has advanced to the point where even our memories can be altered. That's a scary thought.
Seriously scary. It's this fear we all have deep down, losing ourselves, being controlled by forces we can't even comprehend.
It's like the ultimate loss of autonomy, isn't it?
And on that note, I think that's a good place to, to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Immortals.
I'm speechless, honestly. We've gone from existential boredom to virtual afterlives, soul hacking.
We've talked about the price of progress, the moral dilemmas of a world without death. We've met characters wrestling with the weight of endless time.
Searching for meaning in a world where the rules are completely different.
And through their struggles, I think we've come face to face with some uncomfortable truths about ourselves, our desires, our fears, our capacity for both, incredible compassion and, chilling cruelty.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But that's the beauty of these stories. They stay with you. They make you think. They make you feel.
They make you question.
And as we sign off, we want to leave you with this. Keep asking those tough questions. What does it mean to be human when death is no longer a given? What price are we willing to pay for progress?
What would you choose?
Would you choose to live forever? The choice, as always, is yours.